find a camera with this film in it. No trace of the people.
On August 14th, 2023, the Henderson family, Mark, his wife Sarah, and their two children, Emma and Jake, set out for what was supposed to be a peaceful weekend camping trip in the remote Cascade Mountains of Washington state. 3 days later, only their abandoned campsite and a single, horrifying video recording would be found. The family themselves had vanished without a trace, leaving behind evidence of what investigators believe was a brutal attack by an unknown creature. What happened in those final minutes, captured on their own camera, has become one of the most disturbing pieces of cryptid evidence ever recorded. Mark Henderson was an experienced outdoorsman and avid photographer who had been documenting family adventures for over a decade. An engineer from Seattle, Mark often took his family on camping trips to escape the city and reconnect with nature. Sarah, a high school teacher, shared her husband's love of the outdoors, and their children had grown up hiking mountain trails and sleeping under the stars. Friends described the Hendersons as a close-knit, adventurous family who were well prepared for wilderness excursions. Mark never traveled without multiple cameras, portable chargers, and comprehensive safety equipment. He was known for his meticulous planning and had never experienced a serious incident during any of their previous trips. The family's destination was a secluded area of the Cascade Range, approximately 30 miles northeast of Mount Rainier National Park. This region, known locally as the Forgotten Valley, is a vast wilderness area covering roughly 15,000 acres of old-growth forest, steep ravines, and hidden meadows. The terrain is notoriously difficult to navigate, with dense canopy cover that blocks GPS signals and unmarked trails that can confuse even experienced hikers. The area has been largely untouched by commercial development, earning it a reputation as one of Washington's last true wilderness areas. It's also known for something else: an unusually high number of unexplained disappearances and reported Bigfoot sightings dating back over a century. On August 16, 2023, Mark Henderson failed to check in with his brother-in-law as planned. The family had been scheduled to return to Seattle that evening, but when they didn't arrive and couldn't be reached by phone, relatives contacted authorities. A search and rescue operation was launched the following morning, focused on the area where Mark had told family members they planned to camp. The initial search team consisted of 12 volunteers from the King County Search and Rescue Unit, along with 2 tracking dogs. The search lasted 4 days before being officially suspended due to dangerous terrain and deteriorating weather conditions. Despite the team's expertise and the use of helicopter reconnaissance, searchers found only the Henderson family's abandoned campsite on the 3rd day. The site appeared to have been hastily evacuated. Sleeping bags were scattered, food containers were overturned, and camping equipment lay strewn across a 50-yard radius. Most telling was what searchers discovered near the extinguished campfire: Mark's digital camera, apparently dropped in haste, its memory card still intact. The recovered camera contained dozens of typical family vacation photos and videos from the first 2 days of their trip. Scenic mountain vistas, the children playing by a stream, Sarah preparing meals over the campfire. These images painted a picture of a normal, happy family outing. However, the final video file, timestamped 9:47 p.m. on August 16th, told a drastically different story. The recording begins with Mark Henderson filming his wife and daughter during picnic. The atmosphere is relaxed and joyful, but just a few seconds later, their smiles immediately disappear, signaling that something was rapidly approaching them. In the subsequent seconds of the recording, as Mark apparently drops the camera while running, the device falls at an angle that captures the creature in startling detail. The figure is clearly walking upright, its massive frame moving with surprising agility through the forest. The last sounds captured are the family's screams growing distant, followed by an unnatural silence that lasts until the already depleted battery of the camera dies. 3 minutes in total. Digital forensics experts from the Washington State Patrol People examined the recovered footage extensively. The video file showed no signs of tampering or digital manipulation. The camera's internal timestamp matched known data about the Henderson family's movements. Of particular interest to investigators was the creature captured in the final frames. Wildlife biologists from the University of Washington analyzed the footage and concluded that the figure exhibited several characteristics inconsistent with known Pacific Northwest fauna. Bipedal locomotion. The creature maintained an upright, two-legged gait throughout its appearance on camera, unlike bears, which typically drop to all fours when moving quickly. Body proportions. The creature's estimated height of 8 to 9 feet, combined with its broad shoulders and long arms, doesn't match any known primate species native to North America. Behavior patterns. Giant footprints at the site indicate that it was not only one creature who attacked the family, but at least 3. The coordinated approach from multiple directions suggested intelligence and tactical thinking beyond that of typical forest predators. Vocalizations. Audio analysis revealed that the recorded sounds contained frequencies and patterns not found in the vocal repertoires of bears, mountain lions, or other regional wildlife. The Forgotten Valley has been associated with unexplained phenomena for over 150 years. Native American tribes in the region, including the Muckleshoot and Puyallup, have long considered the area sacred and dangerous, referring to it in their oral traditions as the place where giants walk. Tribal elders speak of ancient warnings passed down through generations, advising people to avoid certain areas of the forest, particularly during late summer months when the old ones are said to be most active. European settlers in the late 1800s reported numerous encounters with wild men in the Cascade foothills. A logging camp diary from 1897 describes workers refusing to enter certain sections of forest after tools went missing and strange howls were heard at night. In 1923, a prospector named James McCready claimed to have been chased by a giant ape man near what is now believed to be the same general area where the Henderson family camped. More recent reports have continued to emerge from the region. Between 1970 and 2023, at least 47 people have reported unexplained encounters with large bipedal creatures in the Forgotten Valley area. Most witnesses describe beings between 7 to 10 feet tall, covered in dark brown or black hair, with human-like intelligence but animal-like strength and behavior. Dr. Patricia Thornfield, an anthropologist at Pacific Lutheran University who has studied regional Bigfoot reports for over 2 decades, notes several consistent patterns in eyewitness accounts from the area. What makes the Forgotten Valley reports unique is the consistency of behavioral descriptions. Witnesses repeatedly describe coordinated group activity, tool use, and what appears to be territorial behavior. These creatures aren't simply large animals. They demonstrate planning, communication, and complex social structures. Among the most compelling previous accounts is the testimony of retired forest ranger William Bill Ashford, who worked in the Cascades for 35 years before retiring in 2019. Ashford claims to have encountered a family group of the creatures during a routine patrol in 2015. I was checking on a reported illegal campsite about 3 miles from where the Henderson family was found. As I approached on foot, I heard voices. Not human voices, but something that sounded like a conversation. Deep, rumbling sounds with inflection and rhythm. When I got close enough to see, there were 4 of them around what looked like a crude shelter made from branches and bark. The largest one, must have been 10 feet tall, saw me first. It made a sound, and the others looked my way. For maybe 30 seconds, we all just stared at each other. Then the big one picked up a rock the size of a bowling ball and threw it past my head, close enough that I felt the wind. I got the message and backed away slowly. Never reported it officially because I knew no one would believe me. Local hunting guides and outdoor enthusiasts have long shared stories about the Forgotten Valley, though most are reluctant to speak publicly. Jake Morrison, who has guided hunting trips in the Cascades for over 20 years, explains the local attitude. Every guide worth his salt knows there are places you don't take clients. The valley is one of them. It's not just the difficult terrain, though that's part of it. There's something in there that doesn't want to be disturbed. I've had clients who insisted on going in despite warnings. The ones who did come back were different. Shaken. They'd never talk about what they saw, but they'd never go back either. Morrison's concerns are echoed by members of the local community. Tom Bradley, who owns a sporting goods store in nearby Enumclaw, says he routinely tries to discourage customers from venturing into certain areas. When families come in buying camping gear and mention the Forgotten Valley, I try to steer them somewhere else. I tell them the trails are unmarked, the terrain is dangerous, cell service is non-existent. I don't mention the other stuff because most people think you're crazy. But when a whole family disappears, well, maybe people will start listening. Perhaps the most telling aspect of the Henderson case is what happened after the initial search was suspended. Despite pleas from the family's relatives, local authorities have been unable to organize follow-up search efforts. The official reason cited is the dangerous terrain and liability concerns, but interviews with search and rescue personnel revealed deeper reluctance. Captain Maria Santos, who led the initial search operation, explains the challenges. The Forgotten Valley isn't like other wilderness areas we search. The terrain is treacherous, but that's not the real problem. It's the effect the place has on people. Experienced searchers, people who've spent their careers in the wilderness, become unsettled. During our 4-day operation, we had multiple reports of team members hearing unexplained sounds, finding strange structures, and experiencing what they described as being watched. 2 searchers requested to be pulled from the operation early, citing anxiety and fear. These are people who've conducted searches in every type of terrain imaginable. The search dogs, typically reliable in wilderness rescue operations, behaved unusually throughout the mission. Both animals refused to enter certain areas of the forest, despite the presence of potential scent trails. Handler Rebecca Morse noted that the dogs displayed fear responses she'd never seen before. Ranger and Scout have found lost hikers in conditions you wouldn't believe. Blizzards, floods, after avalanches. I've never seen them refuse to work like they did in the valley. They would approach certain areas, then stop dead and back away, hackles raised. Ranger actually whimpered, which I've never heard him do. It was like they could sense something we couldn't. The helicopter reconnaissance, while covering a broader area than ground teams could reach, revealed several unusual features in the valley that have since become part of the ongoing mystery. Pilot Dave Chen reported spotting multiple structures deep in the forest that appeared to be constructed from tree branches and debris. At first, I thought they might be old lean-tos left by hunters or hikers, but they were too large and too well constructed. Some of them looked almost like primitive huts, arranged in what you might call a settlement pattern. I circled back to get better photos, but by then the canopy cover was too dense to get clear shots. Command decided the structures weren't relevant to finding the families, so we moved on. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the Henderson case is the response, or lack thereof, from the local community. While family members and outside investigators continue to push for expanded search efforts, residents of nearby towns remain largely silent about the disappearance. This silence becomes even more significant when considering how many locals have reportedly had their own encounters with unexplained phenomena in the region. Martha Hendricks, a longtime resident of Enumclaw, explains the community's reluctance to discuss the case. People around here learn early not to talk about certain things, not because we don't believe. Most of us have seen or heard things we can't explain, but talking about it brings attention, and attention brings outsiders who don't understand what they're dealing with. The valley has been mostly left alone for good reason. This sentiment is echoed by other residents who agreed to speak anonymously. A local contractor who has worked throughout the Cascade region describes a culture of deliberate ignorance. You learn to avoid certain areas, certain topics. Everyone knows someone who's had an encounter, but you don't talk about it openly. When my crew is working up in the hills, there are places we just don't go, even if the job would be easier. It's not worth the risk. The Henderson family, well, they didn't know the rules. Dr. Amanda Cross, a sociologist at the University of Washington who has studied rural communities in the Pacific Northwest, suggests that this silence serves a protective function. Rural communities often develop informal systems for managing risks that outsiders don't understand. What might appear to be superstition or denial actually represents generations of accumulated wisdom about local hazards. When a community collectively avoids discussing something, it's usually because that silence serves to protect both the community and outsiders from potential danger. Despite the official suspension of search efforts, the Henderson case remains technically open. Detective Ray Kowalski of the King County Sheriff's Department, who has been assigned to the case, continues to investigate leads and interview potential witnesses. Physical evidence is limited, but what we have is compelling. The video footage shows something that doesn't fit any known animal profiles for this region. The family's campsite showed signs of a violent disturbance, though we found no blood or human remains. Most significantly, we have multiple corroborating reports from credible witnesses describing similar encounters in the same general area. Kowalski's investigation has uncovered a pattern of incidents in the Forgotten Valley dating back decades. Many of these cases were never formally reported or were classified as missing persons cases with unknown causes. However, when examined together, they suggest a persistent presence of something unusual in the region. What troubles me most is the consistency of the reports. Different witnesses, different time periods, but remarkably similar descriptions. Large bipedal creatures displaying intelligence and coordinated behavior. If this were a hoax or mass delusion, I'd expect more variation in the accounts. The detectives' files include detailed interviews with over 30 witnesses who claim to have encountered unusual creatures in the Cascades. Among the most credible is retired wildlife biologist Dr. Kenneth Hayes, who spent 25 years studying animal behavior in Pacific Northwest forests. I was conducting a bird survey in the valley in 2018 when I observed what I initially thought was a bear feeding on huckleberries. However, when the animal became aware of my presence, it stood upright and remained in a bipedal stance while observing me. The creature was approximately 8 feet tall, covered in dark brown fur, with a facial structure that appeared more humanoid than ursine. After roughly 2 minutes of mutual observation, it walked away. Not on all fours as a bear would, but upright like a human. I documented the encounter in my field notes, but never reported it officially due to professional concerns about credibility. The Henderson case has drawn attention from cryptozoologists and academic researchers interested in unexplained phenomena. Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum, a professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State University and a leading authority on Bigfoot research, has analyzed the Henderson footage. The locomotion patterns visible in the final seconds of the recording are consistent with a large, bipedal hominid. The creature's gait, arm swing, and posture are distinctly different from those of known apes or bears. While brief, the footage represents some of the clearest video evidence of an unknown primate species that I've examined. This scientific divide reflects broader challenges in cryptozoological research. Dr. Grover Krantz, the late Washington State University anthropologist who spent decades studying Bigfoot reports, noted before his death that the subject suffers from a lack of institutional support. The academic community's reluctance to seriously investigate reports of unknown hominids creates a self-perpetuating cycle. Without formal research, evidence remains anecdotal. Without evidence, research funding is unavailable. Meanwhile, encounters continue to occur, and families like the Hendersons pay the price for our scientific prejudices. The Henderson disappearance has had profound effects on those connected to the case. Family members continue to struggle with the lack of closure, while first responders and investigators report lasting psychological impacts from their involvement. Sarah's sister, Jennifer Walsh, describes the ongoing trauma experienced by the extended family. Not knowing what happened to them is agony. Were they killed instantly, or did they suffer? Are their bodies somewhere in that forest? Or were they disposed of somehow? The not knowing is what destroys you. Every time we try to move forward, we're pulled back into the horror of that video, hearing their screams, seeing that thing emerging from the trees. The psychological toll extends to professional responders as well. Rebecca Morse, the search dog handler, sought counseling after the suspended search. I keep thinking about how terrified the dogs were, how they refused to do their job, something they'd never done before. It makes you question everything you think you know about the natural world. My dogs are trained to find people, to save lives. What does it say about a place when animals that fearless won't enter it? Dr. Lisa Chen, a trauma psychologist who has worked with several individuals affected by the Henderson case, notes common patterns in their experiences. There's a particular type of psychological distress that comes from encountering something that challenges fundamental assumptions about reality. These individuals aren't just dealing with grief or fear. They're struggling to integrate an experience that doesn't fit their worldview. The knowledge that something unknown and potentially dangerous exists in familiar territory creates lasting anxiety and hypervigilance. As of June 2025, the Henderson family remains missing, and no human remains have been recovered from the Forgotten Valley. The case file remains open, though active investigation has been minimal due to resource constraints and safety concerns. The family's video recording continues to be analyzed by various researchers and institutions, but no definitive conclusions have been reached regarding the identity of the creatures captured on camera. Local authorities continue to discourage recreational activities in the valley, though they stop short of implementing an official closure. Warning signs have been posted at trail access points, citing dangerous terrain and unpredictable wildlife. However, these warnings have had mixed success. Some outdoor enthusiasts are deterred, while others are drawn by the mystery and challenge. The broader implications of the Henderson case extend beyond a single family's tragedy. If the evidence suggests the presence of an unknown species in the Cascade Mountains, it raises fundamental questions about biodiversity, conservation, and human safety in wilderness areas. The creature's apparent intelligence and territorial behavior, as suggested by witness accounts, would require entirely new approaches to wildlife management and public safety. Detective Kowalski continues to hope for new evidence that might shed light on the family's fate. Every few months, someone contacts us with a potential sighting or new information. Most turn out to be unrelated, but we investigate each lead thoroughly. The Henderson family deserves answers, and the public deserves to know if there's a real threat in our wilderness areas. The case has also influenced regional tourism and outdoor recreation. Several guide services have quietly stopped offering trips to certain areas of the Cascades, while others have begun including cryptid safety information in their briefings, advice that might have seemed ridiculous just a few years ago. The disappearance of the Henderson family represents more than just another unsolved missing persons case. It challenges our understanding of the natural world and forces us to consider possibilities that scientific orthodoxy has long dismissed. The video footage they left behind provides a disturbing glimpse into a reality that most people prefer not to acknowledge. The possibility that we share our wilderness areas with intelligent, powerful creatures that view humans as intruders. Whether the Henderson family encountered an unknown species of hominid, fell victim to a sophisticated hoax, or experienced something else entirely may never be definitively determined. What remains clear is that something extraordinary occurred in the Forgotten Valley on the night of August 16, 2023, something that transformed a routine family camping trip into one of the most compelling cryptozoological cases of the modern era. The silence of the local community, the reluctance of authorities to mount extensive search efforts, and the lasting psychological impact on those involved all suggest that the Henderson case touches on something deeper than a simple missing persons investigation. It speaks to the enduring mystery of the American wilderness and the possibility that despite centuries of exploration and scientific study, we still don't fully understand what inhabits the darkest corners of our forests. For Mark, Sarah, Emma, and Jake Henderson, these philosophical questions offer no comfort. They remain missing, their fate unknown, their family destroyed by forces that science has yet to acknowledge or understand. Their story serves as both a warning and a mystery, a reminder that the civilized world's boundaries are less secure than we might like to believe, and that some questions may be too dangerous to answer. The final footage they left behind continues to haunt investigators, researchers, and family members alike. In those final moments, as the camera falls and captures something that shouldn't exist, the Henderson family's tragedy becomes a window into a reality that challenges everything we think we know about the natural world. Whether that window reveals truth or illusion may ultimately matter less than the fact that somewhere in the depths of the Forgotten Valley, the question remains unanswered, and the forest keeps its secrets. But as tragic as this story was, unfortunately, it is not the only one. On August 14, 2023, experienced hikers Marcus Chen and Sarah Williams, both 28 years old, set out on what was supposed to be a 3-day backpacking trip through the remote wilderness of Devil's Ridge National Forest in northern Montana. The couple, who had been together for 5 years and were known for their extensive hiking experience across the Pacific Northwest, never returned from their planned route. 2 weeks later, a search team discovered their abandoned campsite in a state that left investigators baffled and deeply disturbed. What they found challenged every logical explanation and opened a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. Marcus Chen, a software engineer from Seattle, and Sarah Williams, a wildlife photographer, were seasoned outdoor enthusiasts who had successfully completed dozens of challenging wilderness expeditions. Friends described them as meticulous planners who never took unnecessary risks. Marcus was known for his methodical approach to route planning and emergency preparedness, while Sarah's keen eye for detail and extensive knowledge of wildlife behavior made her an invaluable partner on their adventures. Together, they had hiked through some of the most remote and challenging terrain in North America, from the rugged peaks of Glacier National Park to the dense rainforests of the Olympic Peninsula. Devil's Ridge National Forest, spanning over 2.3 million acres of pristine wilderness in northern Montana, is one of the most remote and least visited national forests in the United States. The forest is characterized by dense, old-growth timber, steep mountain terrain, and an ecosystem that has remained largely unchanged for centuries. The area is home to grizzly bears, mountain lions, wolves, and countless other species of wildlife. What makes Devil's Ridge particularly notorious among outdoor enthusiasts is its history of unexplained disappearances, Over the past 50 years, more than 30 hikers and campers have vanished without a trace in the forest's depths. The couple's planned route was ambitious, but well within their capabilities. They intended to hike the Devil's Backbone Trail, a challenging 45-mile loop that winds through some of the forest's most remote sections. The trail is known for its stunning vistas, pristine alpine lakes, and complete isolation from civilization. Cell phone coverage is non-existent throughout most of the route, and the nearest road is often more than 20 miles away from any point on the trail. For experienced hikers like Marcus and Sarah, this isolation was part of the appeal. On August 17th, when Marcus and Sarah failed to return as scheduled, their families immediately contacted park authorities. The couple was known for their punctuality and had never missed a check-in date in all their years of hiking together. Park rangers launched a search operation the following morning, focusing on the Devil's Backbone Trail and surrounding areas where the couple was last known to be traveling. The search effort involved over 40 park rangers, volunteer search and rescue teams, and tracking dogs. Helicopters scoured the area from above, while ground teams methodically combed through miles of dense forest terrain. The operation was complicated by the vast scale of the wilderness and challenging weather conditions. A late-season storm had brought heavy rains and reduced visibility throughout the search area. For 6 days, the search teams found no trace of the missing hikers. The trail they had planned to follow showed no obvious signs of their passage, and weather conditions had likely erased any footprints or other evidence. As hope began to fade, the search was expanded to include areas far beyond their planned route, based on the possibility that they had become lost or injured and wandered off course. On August 24th, 10 days after the couple's disappearance, a search team finally made a discovery that would transform the investigation from a standard missing persons case into something far more mysterious and disturbing. Search team leader Ranger David Hutchinson and his team discovered what appeared to be Marcus and Sarah's campsite in a remote valley approximately 8 miles off their planned route. The location was deep in the forest's interior, in an area that would have required significant effort to reach and had no established trails leading to it. What the search team found there defied easy explanation. The campsite showed clear signs of hasty abandonment. Sarah's distinctive red backpack was found hanging from a tree branch about 15 feet off the ground, as if it had been deliberately placed there or thrown with considerable force. Marcus's blue hiking pack was discovered approximately 50 yards away, partially buried under a pile of fallen branches and forest debris. Both packs contained most of the couple's essential gear: food, water purification tablets, first aid supplies, and spare clothing, but notably, their sleeping bags and tent were missing entirely. Most disturbing of all, scattered throughout the immediate area were personal belongings that appeared to have been deliberately arranged or discarded. Sarah's camera, an expensive professional-grade DSLR that she treasured, was found smashed against a large boulder, its lens shattered and memory card missing. Marcus's GPS device was discovered in pieces, apparently destroyed by some tremendous force. His hiking boots were found neatly placed side by side on a flat rock, as if he had carefully removed them, but there was no logical reason why he would have done so in the wilderness. But it was what the search team found carved into the surrounding trees that truly baffled investigators and transformed the case from a potential rescue operation into something far more sinister. Throughout the campsite area and extending in a rough circle with a radius of approximately 100 yards, dozens of trees bore strange markings carved deep into their bark. These weren't the typical trail markers or emergency signals that lost hikers might create. Instead, they appear to be symbols of unknown origin and purpose, carved with precision and deliberate intent. The symbols varied in complexity but shared certain recurring elements. Many featured interlocking geometric patterns, spirals within triangles, overlapping circles with radiating lines, and strange configurations that resembled nothing in modern writing systems or conventional trail markers. Some of the larger symbols were accompanied by what appeared to be tally marks or counting systems, groups of parallel lines arranged in clusters of 5 or 7. Dr. Jennifer Blackwood, an anthropologist from the University of Montana who was consulted on the case, described the markings as unlike anything in contemporary American culture. She noted that while some elements bore superficial resemblance to ancient Celtic or Nordic symbols, the overall pattern and execution suggested something else entirely. These symbols appear to follow a consistent internal logic, Dr. Blackwood explained, but it's not a logic that corresponds to any known writing system or symbolic tradition that I can identify. What made the markings even more disturbing was the precision and depth with which they had been carved. Each symbol was cut deep into the bark and underlying wood, requiring considerable strength and sharp tools. The cuts were clean and precise, showing none of the rough, hurried quality that might be expected from panicked hikers trying to signal for help. Instead, they appear to have been created with deliberate care and attention to detail. Park investigators noted that it would have taken many hours, possibly days, to create all the markings found in the area. This raised troubling questions about the timeline of events. Had Marcus and Sarah been in the area for an extended period before their disappearance? If so, why hadn't they attempted to return to their planned route or signal for help through conventional means? Even more disturbing than the mysterious symbols were the footprints discovered throughout the campsite area. The prints were massive, nearly 18 inches long and 7 inches wide, far larger than any human footprint. At first glance, investigators assumed they were dealing with bear tracks, which would have provided a logical explanation for the couple's disappearance. Grizzly bears are known to inhabit the Devil's Ridge area, and fatal bear attacks, while rare, are not unheard of in remote wilderness areas. However, closer examination revealed details that didn't match any known bear species. The prints showed clear evidence of 5 distinct toe impressions, each ending not in the sharp points expected from bear claws, but in rounded, almost finger-like appendages. The prints also showed a clear heel impression and an arch structure that suggested bipedal locomotion, walking upright on 2 legs rather than the 4-legged gait characteristic of bears. Wildlife expert Dr. Robert Manning, who has spent over 20 years studying large mammals in the northwestern United States, was brought in to examine plaster casts of the prints. His assessment was troubling. "These prints don't match any known species in this region," he stated in his official report. "The size and basic shape might suggest a large bear, but the toe structure, arch formation, and stride pattern are inconsistent with any bear species I'm familiar with. The stride length, over 6 feet between prints, suggests an animal of enormous size moving on 2 legs, which doesn't correspond to known wildlife behavior." The distribution of the prints throughout the area told a story that investigators found deeply unsettling. The prints formed clear pathways converging on the campsite from multiple directions, as if several large creatures had approached the location simultaneously. Some prints were found directly adjacent to the carved symbols, suggesting a possible connection between whatever had made the tracks and the mysterious markings. Most disturbing of all, investigators found what appeared to be drag marks leading away from the campsite, 2 parallel furrows in the soft forest floor that suggested something heavy had been pulled through the area. The drag marks extended for nearly a quarter mile before disappearing into a rocky area where tracking became impossible. The discovery of the abandoned campsite, mysterious symbols, and unexplained footprints launched an intensive investigation that drew resources from multiple agencies. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit was consulted to develop profiles of potential perpetrators, while forensic teams scoured the area for any trace evidence that might explain what had happened to Marcus and Sarah. One theory that gained early traction was that the couple had encountered other humans in the remote area, perhaps individuals involved in illegal activities who had decided to eliminate witnesses. This would explain the deliberate destruction of equipment and the careful arrangement of belongings. However, this theory struggled to account for the massive footprints and the sophisticated symbol system carved into the trees. Investigators also considered the possibility of a bear attack scenario. Large grizzly bears can rear up on their hind legs and might, under certain circumstances, leave prints that could be misinterpreted as bipedal locomotion. The destruction of equipment and the missing bodies could be explained by bear behavior. However, wildlife experts pointed out numerous inconsistencies with this theory. Bears don't typically destroy camping equipment in the methodical way observed at the site, and they certainly don't carve elaborate symbols into trees. A third theory, whispered among some search team members but never officially acknowledged, was that Marcus and Sarah had encountered something unknown, a creature or phenomena that didn't fit into conventional understanding of the natural world. The massive, human-like footprints, the sophisticated symbolic system, and the complete disappearance of 2 experienced hikers suggested possibilities that investigators were reluctant to seriously consider. A criminal psychologist who reviewed the case files noted the ritualistic aspects of the scene, the careful placement of belongings, the systematic destruction of communication devices, and especially the extensive symbolic markings suggest planning and purpose rather than random violence or animal attack. However, the physical evidence, particularly the footprints, doesn't match known human capabilities. Despite extensive investigations and multiple search operations spanning several months, no trace of Marcus Chen and Sarah Williams has ever been found. No human remains, no additional clothing or equipment, no further clues to explain their fate. The case remains open, but active investigation has been scaled back due to lack of leads and the enormous scope of the search area. Subsequent expeditions to the Devil's Ridge area have reported additional strange findings. In October 2023, a separate hiking group reported discovering similar symbolic markings on trees in an area approximately 15 miles from the original campsite. These new symbols showed variations on the patterns found at Marcus and Sarah's campsite, but maintained the same general characteristics and precision of execution. In December 2023, a park ranger conducting a routine winter patrol reported finding massive footprints in fresh snow near the area where the couple had disappeared. The prints were photographed and measured, showing the same general characteristics as those found at the original campsite. However, winter weather conditions made detailed analysis impossible, and the prints were lost when temperatures rose and the snow melted several days later. Dr. Michael Harrison, a forensic anthropologist at Montana State University, has studied the available evidence and developed his own theories about the case. What we're looking at here doesn't fit conventional patterns of missing persons cases, he explains. The systematic nature of the scene, the sophisticated symbolic system, and especially the physical evidence of the footprints suggest we're dealing with something unprecedented. The symbols carved into the trees show a level of sophistication that suggests advanced cognitive abilities. These aren't random scratches or crude emergency markers, he emphasizes. They represent a complex symbolic system with internal consistency and apparent meaning. Creating such a system requires abstract thinking, planning, and cultural knowledge that goes far beyond what we might expect from primitive survival behavior. The footprint evidence has been equally puzzling. The prints show anatomical features that are consistent with primate locomotion, but at a scale that doesn't match any known species. The toe structure, arch formation, and weight distribution patterns suggest a creature that is adapted for bipedal locomotion, but possesses physical characteristics far beyond human norms. The symbolic markings for patterns that might suggest language or communication systems. While I can't definitively say these symbols represent a language in the conventional sense, they do show structural patterns that suggest systematic meaning. The repetition of certain elements, the consistent execution, and the apparent relationship between symbols in different locations all point to an organized system of communication or record keeping. The case of Marcus Chen and Sarah Williams remains one of the most baffling disappearances in recent memory. The combination of missing persons, mysterious symbols, and unexplained physical evidence has attracted attention from researchers, investigators, and theorists from around the world. Some researchers have pointed to similarities between the Devil's Ridge case and other unexplained disappearances in remote wilderness areas. Dr. David Paulides, who has documented hundreds of missing persons cases in national parks and forests, notes that the Devil's Ridge disappearance shares characteristics with other cases he has investigated. Experienced outdoor enthusiasts vanishing without a trace in remote areas, personal belongings found in impossible locations, and evidence of unknown factors at work. The symbolic markings found at the site have drawn particular interest from many people. Some have suggested connections to ancient symbol systems or unknown forms of communication. Others have theorized that the markings might represent territorial markers or warning signs created by an unknown intelligence. The footprint evidence remains perhaps the most compelling and disturbing aspect of the case. Despite extensive analysis by wildlife experts, forensic specialists, and anthropologists, no consensus has emerged about what creature could have created the massive, human-like prints found throughout the area. As the investigation into the disappearance of Marcus Chen and Sarah Williams continues, numerous questions remain unanswered. What led the experienced hikers to deviate so far from their planned route? The location where their campsite was discovered was miles from any established trail and would have required considerable effort to reach. Did they become lost, or were they drawn to the location by something else? Who or what created the elaborate symbolic markings found carved into dozens of trees throughout the area? The precision and consistency of the symbols suggest they were created over an extended period by someone or something with advanced cognitive abilities and access to sophisticated tools. What creature could have left the massive human-like footprints found throughout the campsite? The prints don't match any known wildlife species, but their size and characteristics suggest something far beyond normal human capabilities. What happened to Marcus and Sarah themselves? Despite extensive searches, no human remains have ever been found. In most wilderness disappearances, some trace of the victims is eventually discovered, even in cases involving fatal animal attacks. Is there a connection between this case and other mysterious disappearances in the Devil's Ridge area? The forest has a long history of unexplained vanishings, and some researchers have suggested that the same unknown factors might be at work in multiple cases. The case remains officially open, and park authorities continue to investigate any new evidence or reports related to the disappearance. However, active searching has been suspended due to the enormous scope of the potential search area and the lack of concrete leads. The families of Marcus Chen and Sarah Williams continue to seek answers and have offered substantial rewards for any information leading to the discovery of their loved ones or explanations for their fate. They have also worked with various investigative organizations and researchers to keep attention focused on the case. Park authorities have increased patrols in the Devil's Ridge area and have issued advisories warning hikers about the remote nature of the terrain and the importance of staying on established trails. However, they have been careful not to create panic or discourage legitimate outdoor recreation in the area. The mysterious symbols carved into trees near the original campsite remain visible, though park authorities have considered removing them to prevent the area from becoming a destination for curiosity seekers and amateur investigators. So far, they have decided to leave the markings undisturbed, hoping they might eventually provide clues to solving the case. The disappearance of Marcus Chen and Sarah Williams at Devil's Ridge represents one of the most puzzling and disturbing missing persons cases in recent history. The combination of experienced hikers vanishing without a trace, mysterious symbolic markings, and unexplained physical evidence has challenged conventional understanding and opened possibilities that investigators are reluctant to seriously consider. Whether the answer lies in human crime, unknown wildlife, or something else entirely, the case serves as a reminder of how much about our world remains mysterious and unexplained. The vast wilderness areas that attract adventurous hikers and outdoor enthusiasts may harbor secrets and dangers that we are only beginning to understand. For the families of Marcus and Sarah, the search for answers continues. Until concrete evidence emerges to explain their fate, the case will remain a haunting reminder that even in our modern, connected world, people can still vanish without a trace, leaving behind only questions and mysteries that challenge our understanding of what is possible. The symbols carved into the trees of Devil's Ridge continue to weather and fade, but their mystery endures. The massive footprints found at the abandoned campsite have long since been erased by rain and snow, but plaster casts preserve their puzzling characteristics for future analysis. And somewhere in the vast wilderness of northern Montana, the truth about what happened to two experienced hikers on a beautiful August morning in 2023 remains hidden, waiting to be discovered.